This is Brian Carlton for ABN Newswire. I'm back at Sydney's Bowlers Club for another Symposium Resources Roadshow. Metallica Minerals Limited is one of the companies presenting to potential investors today. A diversified mineral exploration and development company with major interest in the mineral-rich state of Queensland. Metallica Minerals' core focus has been Queensland, while expanding its business through a complementary series of strategic acquisitions and corporate alliances. Metallica Minerals' founding director and CEO, Andrew Gillies, has driven the company and the group's success. He's a founding director of Alumina Limited, MetroCoal Limited, and is a board member of the Queensland Resources Council, Orion Metals Limited and Planet Metals Limited. A busy man. Andrew Gillies, welcome to ABN Newswire.
Thank you, Brian.
You've maintained your core focus on the sustained development of your flagship NORNICO Nickel Cobalt project in North Queensland, but you've diversified at the same time. How have you managed both?
Well, Queensland's a very mineral-rich state, and I think we've been very lucky there. Title is vital. We've been able to put our foot on very good projects with resources in brownfields area. And of course, all of those has exploration upside. So we've got, going from Cape York down to, say, Brisbane, we've got a 33% interest in Cape Alumina, which is 100% ownership of the Weipa Bauxite project.
Oh, okay.
That was floated early last year. West of Brisbane, we've got 56% of MetroCoal, which has got 100% of the Surat Coal Basin coal. A very good project looking at export thermal coal. We've also got 76% of Planet Metals, which we're very lucky last year to buy a stressed asset. We got it very cheaply. It's basically a going concern, but it's currently on care and maintenance. We've got an asset there that was arguably spent $30 million. We got it very cheaply, around about $2 million at the time.
Wow. And
of course, NORNICO, which is our flagship project west in the headland of Townsville. We've been at quite a few years. We've expanded the resource quite substantially, and December last year we acquired the old Greenvale nickel mine, and we're currently drilling there now. We've just kicked off an 8,000 metre drill program with about 300 drill holes. So we're targeting high-grade nickel resources in the old Greenvale mine site.
Queensland really is proving to be a resources heaven, isn't it?
Oh, I think it's great. I mean, we're Brisbane-based. I'm a geo by background. I've got over 22 years' experience, most of which has been in Queensland, and mineral endowed and not nearly as competitive as some other states, arguably Western Australia.
That's interesting.
And you haven't got the sovereign risk of some of the overseas countries that are also mineral rich. So we like Queensland.
A diverse mineral portfolio like Metallica's is no accident. Why that strategy?
Well, we've been very careful. Our flagship, we've maintained 100% ownership in Metallica. That's going very well for us. The sentiment for nickel laterites isn't that good, but we're very positive on this project. We're focusing high grades, particularly with nickel. We've got cobalt benefits. We've got a great location. But the spin-off ones that we've done, for example, last year, MetroCoal and Cape Alumina, it gives an opportunity for both of those companies to have a commodity focus, a management team focus, and a self-funding focus. And of course, from Metallica's point of view, we're focused on NORNICO and a few other assets, and hopefully those companies will look very good on our balance sheet one day.
There's a massive increase in the amount of investor dollars coming out of China. You've picked up some of that backing. They're clearly confident in what you're up to.
Very much so. Our major shareholder now is the second largest nickel company in China, Jilin Nickel. They picked up the Kagara Zinc shareholding middle of last year. Kagara had a bit of a tough time in the GFC, and we're very fortunate that their problem became our problem, which is an overhang, and Jilin Nickel came straight in and acquired the stake, and they're very happy with it. And the relationship is they're very interested in our nickel cobalt project.
Let's talk China for a minute. Do you see the economic growth continuing at the same kind of rate that it has been, or will inflation be a worry at some point and the brakes will have to be applied? Are you concerned about that at all?
Well, there's certainly a lot of speculation just recently in the last couple of months, and potentially trade war with the US and China. That's been sort of mentioned a few times. I don't see it. I think that I've had about 5 trips to China, various parts from north to north of Beijing to Yunnan province and Hong Kong. In fact, I'm going over there at the end of this month. I think what's happened, if you look at the last 15 years, Western commentators have constantly underestimated growth in China. And
that's a fair call, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's 15 years in a row. And this year I think is the same. I think the number that's mentioned is 8%, and I think that look, if they say they'll do it, I'm pretty sure they will.
I'm reading some figures that saying it could be going as high as 12. and they might need to apply some kind of slowdown. And obviously the Chinese government has a greater capacity to do that than any other Western nation does at a government level. Do you see that kind of thing happening? Because they can't really sustain 9, 10, 11, 12, 13% growth indefinitely, can they? It's going to have an inflationary impact on the domestic economy.
There's no doubt that the government can control what they want.
Will they need to, though? That's the question. Will they need to pull it back a bit? Do you see it going too hard?
Oh, I think the different sectors. I mean, there is cases where there is a bubble in some sectors, and you can cherry pick what you like. I guess there are shopping centres without some shoppers in them, but all the areas that I've been, it's just they're doing it for the future. Their infrastructure spending will not be wasted. The numbers of the urban areas coming into the city areas. The migration is huge. It's the biggest in history, and it'll probably just get bigger and gather momentum. But everywhere I've been in China, I've been always surprised for the better.
Speaking of infrastructure, Queensland, is it up to speed? The place is clearly going ballistic in a resources sense. Has it got the rail, the road, the ports to get the resources out of the country? It
has, but 10 years ago. It's certainly not prepared for the growth that's coming. We've already got, in some cases, ships lined off the coast. That is a bottleneck, and already in the papers you see that the Queensland government is looking at seriously asset sales, one of which is the rail. I think to really get things going, I think we'll need to have some overseas money coming in and building big infrastructure. And you can see what's happening, for example, in the Galilee Basin, where they're just building a $9 billion project, almost starting from fresh because there is no infrastructure out there. For example, we're in the Surat, and there's already rail planned, but again, you've got to jump through all the hoops. It is frustrating, but unfortunately, there has been a bit of a lack of vision from the policymakers some time ago, and it's catching up with us.
State level, federal, both?
Oh, both.
They are going to have to get together, aren't they?
Energy policy is another one. I mean, for example, we're very keen on fuels, and I think particularly liquid fuels are going to be very big in the future, but there doesn't seem to be any coordinated response by the federal government in terms of our reliance on imported oil, for example, and it's just going to get worse. Australia's had peak oil, and I think by about 2014, assuming pretty conservative oil prices, at least $25 billion are going to go offshore every year because of a reliance of overseas fuels.
Since listing in 2004, Metallica really has gone from strength to strength. What are the highlights for you as the driving force behind it? What are you most proud of in terms of your achievements?
Well, I think our portfolio is we're very proud of. It's not so far reflected on the scoreboard, unfortunately. We've got 122 million shares, around about 25 cents at the moment, and our market cap's 30. Now, I find that ridiculous. If you add up just on our listed investments with Cape, MetroCoal, Planet Metals and Orion, plus 9.5 or so cash, that's around about 50 mil. Our market cap's 30. And of course, our flagship project doesn't get any recognition. And if you look at the sum of the parts, well in excess of our market cap. So I think there's an opportunity out there for value investors who want to go and do a little bit of homework, is look at Metallica.
Andrew Gillies, Chief Executive Officer of Metallica Minerals. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Brian.
This is Brian Carlton for ABN Newswire.